Hello, Canucks fans, and welcome back to another episode of Canucks Conversation, which is brought to you by Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today. Bet on a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Be sure to use code NATION when you sign up for an account. My name is Dave Quadrelli. I am joined by Harmon Dial. We need to get something out right away. The chat, as I like to say, is bumping. Why is it that when the show starts late, which is always the producer's fault,
Whoa. You guys who both showed up into the waiting room at like 1:58.
Show goes live at 2. Sounds like we were on time. Anyways, the people in the chat always blame this on me. Never Harmon, never Jacob, and it's not always Jacob's fault, but never people just say classic quads, always late. That's a real comment from Kai Hansen in the chat. And then Dr. Haas, also a regular listener of the show, said it's always quad standard time, not PST.
I love it.
I don't love it. Conversation reminding us, Jacob, acting producer Jacob Lazar, who caught a stray early on in the show today, bringing up that it's a tough family feud week. He's setting the over-under at 191.5 points. He is taking the under, though. Jacob, you reminded me that it was Family Feud Day. I forgot. But what do you think?
I did put it in the group chat earlier. But
do you think we're going to be able to do it or no?
Yeah, that's a pretty fair line, but there's one or two like legit number one answers that if you hit them, you're going to win.
Okay. All right. Family Feuds later in the show. We've got a lot to get to today, including Krissy Scurfield, who's going to join us from Canada Rugby. She's at the end of the show today. We did pre-record that. It was a great conversation with Krissy. She played pretty high-level hockey as well, making the switch to rugby. Okay, let's get into it, Harm. Let's get into last night's game. I started instant reaction with this, and I'm going to start the show like this as well. All of you people out there that were saying, "Oh, I'm not watching this gimmick tournament. I don't want this tournament to exist." Just show yourselves now. Like, I knew you'd be wrong, but now everybody can see that you were objectively wrong. That was the fastest hockey game I think I've ever seen. That was so much fun. And that's an aspect of it that I didn't really take into consideration. We talk about the game getting faster and, the league's getting faster, the league's getting younger. We haven't seen best on best since the league's become that much faster. And man, oh man, did last night's game deliver on the speed.
It was electric. And honestly, just the storybook way that the game unfolded too. I mean, Sidney Crosby, the first star, 3 points leading the way for Team Canada, seeing how invested Nathan McKinnon was to have the drama of Canada building the early lead and everybody thinking early on that, this might be a rout. Sweden not getting its first shot until I think it was less than 4 minutes left in the first period. But then the comeback, the uncertainty around the goaltending, the OT winner, like that, the script writers could not have come up with something that perfect to kick off this Four Nations tournament. And I'll say this from a personal standpoint. Of course, I grew up a Canucks fan, but ever since you get into the industry as a professional, the fandom kind of just naturally it dies in you, right? Obviously I want the Canucks to do well because our listeners, our audience are Canucks fans and I want them to be happy, but I don't have a personal vested, like emotional need for the Canucks to do well. So it's been a really long time, probably 2013, 2014. It's been probably about a decade since I've been able to like really invest in the game. And man, just like cheering for Canada that type of way. It was really cool. I've never been that nervous watching a hockey game, and it was just so electric.
Okay, I'll be honest. I'm wearing my red today. Been talking a lot about feeling patriotic lately. I was watching that game, and obviously I was rooting for Canada. But as Canada poured on the pressure, I was like, all right, Sweden, like, let's make a game of this. I want to see competitive hockey at the end of the day. I didn't want to see Canada rout them. And it's like you said, Harm, to start that game, it looked like Canada was in the driver's seat. I did think they took their foot off the gas a little bit, and then Sweden kind of struck. And then Canada realized, okay, we need to actually keep our foot on the gas. And I think that's the thing that impressed me the most about Sweden was, although they had their flashes in that game, no matter what the score was, they basically played the exact same way all game long. Like, they did not deviate from their game plan, and in the end, they get it to overtime. It was a coin flip in overtime. They could have scored. Jordan Bennington made 2 huge saves. He's going to be a big talking point all tournament long, as we knew heading into the tournament as well. He's going to be someone we talk about in today's show as well, but I thought it was a great game all in all, and I think people in the chat are already saying it as well. Like, what's going to happen when Canada and USA play each other? Like, that's going to be such a high-flying game. That's one that you won't want to miss for sure.
I was hoping that game was a perfect microcosm of both the strengths and weaknesses of Canada, all within, the 60-plus minutes of that game, where in the beginning, you got the upside case of Canada, where their speed, especially up front, is so terrifying. The way that they can ruthlessly punish mistakes off turnovers on the counterattack, stretch the ice vertically with McDavid, with McKinnon, is downright terrifying. And in the first period, the Swedes couldn't even possess the puck. They couldn't win battles. And that sort of was the case of, okay, well, you might have a question mark in net, but if Canada just dominates possession for most of the game, how much does goaltending really matter? But then as the game progressed, Sweden found their identity, found their game a little bit. And that's when, I'll be honest, I think 2 of the goals that Bennington surrendered were muffins. The Brodin shot, maybe you could say he was moderately screened, but he should, a high-level goaltender should have that all day long. And then the Kempe shot too, high slot, sort of threw him. It's not like Kempe picked a corner. He should have had that one too. I'll say this. You mentioned earlier how you felt like Canada took their foot off the gas a little bit. I don't think it was so much that Canada took their foot off the gas as much as it was Sweden adjusted to just how fast and how aggressive Canada was, especially in the first period. You got to think about playing in the Bell Center and how jacked up McDavid, McKinnon, and Crosby are about playing with each other. I think there was just a level of intensity and just excitement that when you're the home team, essentially, you're just feeding off that crowd. And I don't think Sweden was prepared for how quickly Canada was going to be on top of them on the forecheck. Canada's forecheck in the beginning was unbelievable, but I think as the game went on, Sweden became more comfortable making plays under pressure. And then what really stood out to me as far as why Sweden started to get back into the game was their blue line started killing plays down low so well. Canada couldn't generate any sustained pressure off the cycle, and they also stopped turning pucks over as frequently. In the first period, they were turning pucks over, and so there were opportunities for Canada to attack on the counter. But when Sweden stopped turning pucks over, especially with how good their D are at killing cycle plays, that's why Canada had, in my opinion, so much trouble generating offense from the second period onward.
Conversation. Did Sweden make a game of it, or did Bennington make a game of it?
Both.
Callie Canuck said he played well in overtime, but 2 of the 3 goals were weak. Yeah, like Bennington needs to have his shoulder up on that first one. The Kempe one, the only thing, not to do a goalie guild thing, the defenseman shouldn't have kept backing up as much as he did. Like, you have to, at some point, you have to challenge. You can't just keep backing up into your goaltender. Obviously, that Brodin one is one you want to have back. You're screened, but just proper positioning. Like, if you're looking like Archer Shilov's on a goal, that's not a good thing on a point shot. So, yeah, didn't love what Bennington did, but also he showed his value in the end of that game. Like, he made some big saves at the end of the game, and it's like John Garrett always says, it's about, wait, what does he say? It's like the last save you make? I'm getting it messed up. What did he say? He said something along the lines of that. Jacob?
I don't know the exact phrase, but
yeah, I'm not sure what you're getting at there, but
okay, I'm gonna text him. But he said something along those lines of like it's about the last save you made.
I don't know, man. I think Canada wins in regulation if Bennington is even average. Like, he could have allowed one of those, like one of the Brodin and Kempe goals, and they still win.
But he made some good saves in the third as well.
He made one off the redirect.
2. I counted 2 in the third. In my notes, I have 2.
I think you're giving too. This is best on best, man. I think you're giving too much credit to. Like, I get it. He redeemed himself in OT. He was brilliant in OT. Yeah. But if he was even average in regulation, I think it never gets to overtime.
I think you're being a little. I think we have to meet somewhere in the middle. I think you're being a little too hard on him, and I'm being a little too goalie guild.
I'm 100% with Harmon on this one.
You don't think he was average in regulation?
No.
Hold on, I'm pulling up natural stat trick. Like he's
gonna be
screened on
below.
a shot. Don't make me do this. Don't make me do this.
Here,
the U.S. is going to have Connor Hellebuck on the other end, and you're making excuses that, he was moderately screened on a point shot.
Did I say he's Connor Hellebuck? Did anybody think that Jordan Bennington was going to be Connor Hellebuck in this tournament?
No, but when you have best on best, you would hope that your best can play at least close to the other country's best.
Okay.
Conversation in the chat, Logan Thompson wouldn't have let more than the Joel Eriksson-Ek goal in. So, like, you look at, if it was Thompson or if it was Aiden Hill, yeah, maybe they don't make both of those huge saves in overtime, but the game's probably not in overtime to begin with. And that's just kind of the way Bennington is. He plays in big moments, and he comes up with massive saves, and he's a great puck handler, and he'll make some pretty outstanding plays with the puck and saves, but he puts himself in situations to need to make those saves, which in a short tournament like this is a little scary.
I'll be honest. I don't know how many people in the chat agree, but every time Sweden had the puck in the offensive zone, especially in the second half, and there was a scoring chance, I was terrified at every shot towards Bennington.
Okay. I think that's what I'm saying. I think that's
I was nervous. I don't know how many people agree with me. Chat, let me know. And this is the same opinion that my friends watching had too, was anytime Sweden was threatening in the offensive zone, you were maybe terrified is an exaggeration, but you were nervous. You weren't sure if Bennington was going to be able to come up with a big stop.
Look, I want Logan Thompson to be at this tournament, but of the three guys they have, like, Bennington's your best bet in my mind.
And I'm not sitting here saying don't start Bennington the next game, because despite all the criticism I've thrown at Bennington, I still think you roll with him next game, simply because I don't think your alternatives are much better. Montembeault is not better than Bennington, and Hill's been average this year too. Like that to me, and I was going to ask you where you stand on the debate.
Mm-hmm.
Despite me not liking Bennington's game in the opener, I would still roll with him going to the second one, just because I'd be hoping that, okay, his play in overtime maybe gives him some confidence. They won. And more importantly, it's not like I have much more confidence in Hill or Montembeault.
Do you give Hill the start against Finland then?
I don't think so. I think if you're gonna stick to, put it this way, if you're gonna go to Hill, you go to him next game. If you're gonna go to Bennington, you ride him the entire way. You don't do this. I
agree with you. I just wonder if they're gonna. I assumed they would want to get Hill a start. Like, I thought the backups would be getting a start at this tournament, but I also don't know, given the point system and that Canada didn't pick up 3 points last night. I think that might change things a bit, where they're just like, okay, we got to go with the best guy. And I think they agree that Jordan Bennington is probably the best guy.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because Hill himself is not having a great season. You're talking about Hill this year has, I believe, a 900 save percentage behind a tremendous Vegas team that defends pretty well, whereas Bennington is a few ticks below that. I think he's like an 896 or somewhere in that territory, but he plays behind a much worse Blues defensive environment. So arguably Bennington has been slightly better than Hill this season.
Okay, a reminder, it's Canada USA on Saturday, February 15th, and it is Canada Finland on Monday, February 17th, and then the championship goes on Thursday. Let's continue to break down this game, Harm. 2 points of a possible 3. Sweden picks up a point. I saw the tweet going viral last night I can't remember who tweeted it, but it made me laugh, with both Canada and Sweden picking up points in this game, Finland has been officially eliminated. It's harsh, but it's massive for Sweden to pick up a point in that game.
Yeah, but I don't think Sweden cares. They're not playing for third place. And if you're Sweden, you battled all the way back to tie it. You had a couple of really good looks in OT. You're disappointed. I don't think there's any, we at least got a point. It's too short of a tournament, and you're playing to win. You're not playing to come second or third. But
it also, probability-wise, it does greatly increase your chances of finishing second. Like, that's the thing. We were talking about this yesterday. Not yesterday, the last time we just showed Tuesday. If you lose a game at this tournament, like, your opponent gets 3 points and you get none, like, you're basically out. You could be out in game 1. It really, you're starting behind the 8 ball if you lose that first game. And look, I'm not saying it's an easy path to second for Sweden, but it does definitely make it easier for them to go out and get those points.
They're going to have to beat the Americans.
Yep.
That's going to be a really tough battle. And of course, Finland as well. So they basically got to win their 2 next games if they want to crack it and actually playing in the championship.
I'm getting this right? Where Sweden is now Canada's biggest fan. Like, if US loses to Canada and then Sweden somehow beats the US or even gets them, again, an overtime loss, again, they have 2 points. That would be what they're rooting for, right? Is like regulation loss for the US and then they...
Yeah, because Canada's already picked up a win. So at this point, if Canada can take down the US, Sweden can, and if Sweden takes down the US, now your path to being second and making the championship, like that's your road, that's your path.
Nar in the chat saying, I like the 3-point regulation win thing. Keep. I like that too. Obviously, we've talked about it in the past as well. The reason they don't do it is because they want playoff races right down to the wire of look how close it is. Look at those numbers. Those numbers and the point totals are very, very close. Another debate that came out last night was the overtime sequence. And I want to weigh in on that with you as well. 10-minute 3-on-3 overtime. I saw a tweet. I can't remember who tweeted it. I really should write these down when I see a funny tweet. But someone tweeted out that it's 5 minutes of overtime and the players have started napping at center ice. This is just too long. This is inhumane. We should have known. Yeah, down goes Brown. It was down goes Brown. Here it is. He said, terrible scene in Montreal where as soon as the overtime hit 5 minutes, all the players got too tired to keep going. Fans are begging for a shootout, but the players have brought out little cots and curled up for naps. The NHL warned us this would happen. We should have listened. Such a good tweet. And that's the thing is, I really like the 10-minute overtime. It decreases the chances of a shootout. In my mind, it gets guys, you need to use more of your bench. You can't just play one guy the whole time. Don't tell Nathan McKinnon that, who after the game was talking about how he was so tired and he's a fan of 5. I think he said 7 minutes. No more than 7 minutes for overtime for Nate McKinnon. But Nate, you don't have to be the only one on the ice. You're allowed to get some rest as well. I like the 10-minute 3-on-3.
It's wild, by the way. I know he wasn't out there for long. It's wild to me that Anthony Cirelli got a 3-on-3 OT shift. There were so many other guys that could have gone with. I was also surprised in general. I know his overall ice time wasn't too bad, so I'm not gonna accuse John Cooper of being.
They used him in big moments, though.
They used him too much. Like I could understand it to some extent when they were protecting the lead, but man, when it was a tie game and it's like last few minutes, it's like please get Anthony Cirelli off my screen.
Yes. Which is
all the respect to Cirelli because he's a tremendous player.
Absolutely, but.
Like Brad Marchand saw the bench in those big moments. Seth Jarvis saw the bench. Guys like Konechny weren't playing that much. Like Anthony Cirelli should not be playing that much in a tie game situation with only a few minutes left.
Ice time is going to be a theme of this show, but quickly, like we haven't even talked about the game. The biggest story, he's first star of the game. Glad to see it. Love to see it. Future Canucks Sidney Crosby. My goodness, he brought his game. 3 assists. And not just 3 assists, like, oh, look at the stats. Like, a driver on every single shift. He was just so good. Again, this guy is, like, 37 years old, and he's just still got it on best. And I'm so excited for that game against the States. Just watching Crosby cook. And that's the thing is, Crosby with McKinnon is a cheat code. And then McDavid hops over the bench, and it's just like, how do you even stop that? And USA is going to try. They have weapons of their own, but man, I have to give Sidney Crosby his flowers. That made me feel like a kid again, watching Sidney Crosby just dominate at an international competition.
100%. And then getting that ovation at the end for the first star at the Bell Center, where his father's obviously drafted, and how much the city of Montreal means to Sid. That's probably one of the most special moments in his career. And I mean, the first goal. The power play, it
did not disappoint. We were talking about how good that power play was going to be. It did not disappoint.
There aren't even words to describe how fired up I was seeing that tic-tac-toe play. Crosby with the no look through the seam to McKinnon on the back door. It's a shame that we didn't get to see the power play again, because that's, you put those guys on the ice at the same time, Cale Makar running things from the point, and you've got the potential for so much magic. And I mean, the other assist as well, the way that he was able to drive the puck up the ice, get the pass to past the Stone. I mean, it's incredible, especially with the context too that a few days ago we weren't even sure if Crosby was going to come to Four Nations because of the injury that he sustained. So for him to lead the way like that is just incredible.
Marchand adds another one after that first goal, the power play goal that you're talking about. It was 2-0 Canada, and then Sweden strikes back. Again, it gets pushed out to a 3-1 lead, but then Adrian Kempe scores again to bring the Swedes within one. Obviously, they tied up, and then it goes to overtime. But man, the plays from Sidney Crosby were just phenomenal all the game long. Loved what I was seeing from him. Yeah, I have not much else to say other than that.
I'll also say this: the Ontario Facebook uncles must be taking massive victory laps right now, because you watch the Mark Stone goal. It's William Nylander who turns the puck over, and it's again Nylander on the back check who doesn't do a shoulder check, doesn't pick off the pass into the slot. Which, okay, even if you are responsible for the turnover, there's no excuse for not picking up Stone in that spot. And then on top of that, for Toronto, Ontario's Mitch Marner to finish things off, the Facebook uncles must be really vindicated.
That's the funny thing. Marner had a bad game, I thought. I know Marner played poorly.
Honestly, that McDavid line had no chemistry in regulation. Reinhart was remarkably quiet. Marner was remarkably quiet. The only time that line looked dangerous is when McDavid made an individual foray or an individual dash. And I was thinking to myself, man, how long are they going to keep up Marner on that top line, especially deep into the third when the pressure was ramping up and Sweden tied it. I was even wondering if they were going to shuttle up a guy like Konechny. Or even a Brendan Hagel to play on that McDavid line and bump Marner down the lineup. So for him to, in a big moment like that, get the OT winner, I know it's 3-on-3, so totally different environment, but you hope that gets him going, because you're right. In regulation, he and Reinhart were remarkably quiet.
Want to go to Sweden now? Like, we got all the Bennington stuff out. Nothing else from Canada. Mitch Marner, fraudulent scores at the end of the game. Make everybody forget about how putrid he was. Let's go to Sweden, where at least Pettersson had a bit of a quiet night. Didn't look as bad as Mika Zibanejad, which is the number one thing I'm seeing on social media, is that Mika Zibanejad looked like he was skating in quicksand. He did look really, really bad in that game. Thought Pettersson was probably their second or third best center. Great news for Pettersson, bad news for Team Sweden, or other way around, I suppose. But Mika Zibanejad looked awful in that game.
He also led them playing nearly 21 minutes. They're leaning on him way too much. I mean, Zibanejad isn't even a top two center on his own NHL team at this point, right? They have him playing the wing because he can't drive play up the middle. But I also understand it, right? That's why when we were doing a Four Nations preview the other day and we were talking about roster weaknesses, to me, Sweden's strength down, or the options they have down the middle were the biggest weakness. And it was apparent, especially in the first period, that Sweden just has no game-breaking speed at the center ice position. That was also what stood out about Pettersson is he held his own from a defensive standpoint. He didn't get caved in. He was totally fine away from the puck, but he had no pop. He had no ability to make dynamic things happen, which is what you need in an environment where both sides are so structured. They're so smart defensively. There's not going to be a lot of time and space. You've got to have that burst, that pop to really make an impact offensively. That's where he was quiet. That's where Sweden just couldn't match that, right? The other side, McDavid and McKinnon, we saw on the counterattack. But McKinnon in OT was practically unguardable. He had 4 pretty high quality looks. That was the biggest difference to me in that game. Was down the middle, the Canadians had speed, got production, whereas Sweden, I know Eriksson Ek scored, but they just didn't have that same level of speed and play driving.
A couple people also pointing out the 16-17% face-off percentage for Pettersson, just getting absolutely crushed in the dot. Nick H saying he was one of Sweden's best players. I don't know about that. I don't know if I'd say that. Yeah, I don't know.
He was average to me.
He was average. Sweden wasn't spectacular by any means, but yeah, I don't know. I think there were some players. Like, I did like what Kempe brought. I did like his game. Obviously, he scores the goal. The back end. Can I say this? I was disappointed with Victor Hedman. Thought Victor Hedman was really unspectacular. He had a play. I know Tockett's on the other bench, but I think it was the second goal. It was one where Hedman can't be gambling there, can't be swinging there. You gotta reload. And Tockett's on the other bench, but if we got to hear from him post game and pick apart Hedman's game, that's what we would hear on that second goal. I thought he, again, for a guy who's supposed to be one of your leaders or is your captain on that team, to make that gamble when you know it's going to lead to a 2-on-1 the other way. And again, also doing the little swing, like swings his stick out and kind of curls back. I didn't really like that play from Hedman. Thought he was pretty unspectacular. Thought Dahlin was good, but yeah, Hedman, not so much.
Yeah, it was costly for sure. I'd say Sweden overall, they didn't give Canada a lot, especially from the second period onward. I thought it was tough for the Canadians to generate offense because the length, the mobility that the Swedes had on the back end. Again, how many shifts do you remember where the Canadians were dangerously cycling the puck in the offensive zone? They didn't really create a lot of threatening looks from down low in the offensive zone off sustained pressure where there's buildup. They were honestly reliant quite a bit on getting pucks to the net from the point, which just is an inefficient strategy. And to some extent, I understand it because off the cycle, it's difficult when the other team is already structured and in place. And especially when you don't have chemistry with your line mates, it's difficult to figure out and solve how to break the defense down and get to the inside. That's, I think, where the Swedish D as a 6-man unit from the second period onward really impressed me, is how quickly they killed plays down low and prevented Canada from being able to cycle the puck and create those long shifts where Swedes look like they're tired and on the ropes.
All in all, it was a great start to the tournament. Canada goes to 26. I didn't believe this when I saw it. 26-0-0 in their last 26 games with Sidney Crosby at international tournaments. Crazy. Just a crazy, crazy stat. I did not realize that. I know they did a lot of winning. I didn't realize that was all they did with Sidney Crosby.
Well, and I think the last loss was the round robin game against the U.S. in 2010 with Crosby in the lineup. So they've never lost with him wearing the C for Canada, which is absurd. And that's, I believe, one World Championship in there, the World Cup, the 2014 Olympics, and now the Four Nations. Like, absolutely unbelievable that he has never lost as the captain for Team Canada.
It's unbelievable. Okay, let's get to our poll question, which is brought to you by Toyota Pacific Dealers. Yeah, Pacific Toyota Dealers. Who want to tell you about the 100% electric Toyota BZ4X. The BZ4X is packed with all the things you want in an SUV, like the room to fit all your family, friends, hockey bags, and whatever else you've got. And of course, the BZ4X is backed by the peace of mind that comes with knowing you're driving a Toyota. When you choose the BZ4X, you can get up to $6,500 in rebates and incentives, and now you can finance the 2025 BZ4X from 3.29% APR for 36 months. Visit shoptoyota.ca, your local Pacific Toyota dealer today, and your Pacific Toyota dealers have a very exciting contest going on right now. This grand prize includes 2 tickets to Rogers Arena for the April 6th game between the Canucks and Golden Knights, and 2 Canucks jerseys. If you want to win, check out the link in our episode description or follow Toyota Pacific on Instagram and Facebook at Toyota Pacific for your chance to enter. Contest open only to residents of BC and Yukon of age of majority. Okay, our poll question. What'd you think of Elias Pettersson's performance versus Canada? Good, fine, disappointing, or bad? 53% of people say fine, 32.8% say it was disappointing, 9.1% say it was bad, and 5.2% say it was good. I'm somewhere between fine and disappointing. Disappointing because I think you wanted to see him take over. You were looking at that. Look, we all saw that clip of him flying around in warm-up, how excited everyone got at him at practice, just flying out there. I want to see a little bit more, but I think he was fine. Ultimately, though, when you have higher expectations, a little disappointing. Kind of sums up his season.
Yeah, it was okay. It was middling, mediocre, whatever word you want to use. It's the type of performance that you walk away and go, he held his own and wasn't a liability. And look, holding your own from a two-way perspective, you don't want to underestimate the impact of that, given how ridiculously stacked the roster on the other end is. But you wanted him to be an offensive difference maker, and he wasn't that.
Nar in the chat. Sure, the game was exciting, but don't forget, it's coming at the expense of watching the players shoot pucks at surfboards. With that, let's get to anyone else, which is brought to you by our friends over at Greta, a great spot for all games, including Saturday's game, Canada versus USA. You won't want to miss it, folks. It is a watch party. It is hosted by Scarce and Price, presented by Fountain Tire in support of the Social Run Club YVR. Tickets are on sale for just $10. Puck drop is at 5 p.m. for that game. And like I said, it is Saturday, February 15th. Tickets are available at nationgear.ca. We want to see you there, folks. It's going to be a great game. We know it's going to be a great game. Come watch it with us. Have a lot of fun. It's going to be so good. So good to watch this game. I can't wait. I honestly can't wait. So nationgear.ca. Get your tickets for that event. Greta Bar has it all. They've got the weekly drink specials, the recently updated street food menu, and of course, those arcade games. Greta Bar YVR is the place to be. 50 West Cordova Street is the address. Let the games begin. Another thing that came out of yesterday, Harm, was an announcement shortly after, I guess we didn't do a show. It would have been shortly after we did a show. Gary Bettman speaks and says World Cup of Hockey is back. They are committing to it for 2028 and 2032, along with Olympic participation. I suggested this, I think it was Tuesday's show, the Four Nations preview, where I said I'd like to see them do this, the alternating years. You have I wanted them to do the Four Nations face-off, but they're going to have 8 teams, 8 nations, no gimmick nations either. That was another thing Bettman said. 8 nations face off in the World Cup of Hockey every 4 years, and then every 2 years between that, I don't know why I'm having so much trouble articulating this, they're going to have the Olympics. I really like it. It gives the Olympic teams a chance to kind of keep fresh in between the Olympics, and I'm excited to see it. I'm really excited.
Yeah, and I don't think how anybody... I can't imagine a scenario where after that type of game that we just saw between Canada and Sweden, how could you not be thrilled and excited to have the World Cup return, to have the Olympics, and to every 2 years see some form of best on best? Yeah,
I'm super excited. It's going to be great.
And I was going to say, I think they even mentioned they would open up bids in Europe as well to host the World Cup. Like, be awesome to have like a World Cup in Stockholm or Helsinki, right? Like, and seeing these Riga, those Latvians love their hockey, right? Mm-hmm. And especially when, if Latvia were to happen to be in the World Cup, I don't know if they would be, but I think to me, as Nar said, it's just so much more exciting to see best on best international hockey than whatever is left of the NHL All-Star game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, they'll still do the All-Star game. I think that would be the plan during the years that you don't have the international play. But I'm excited. I'm really excited for this. Again, I pitched this idea the other day. Glad to see them following through. Noted listener of the show, Gary Bettman.
You pitched this idea. Meanwhile, you were I was the one that brought this idea up. And It's not even my idea.
You didn't like the idea when I brought it up.
Stop gaslighting me. You were talking about, I love having, before the Olympics, they should have another tournament the preceding year.
No, that's what you said. I said every 2 years.
Stop gaslighting me.
I'm not even joking. I'm not joking.
Look at the chat, dude.
I'm okay. I swear. I'm sure that this is what I said. I did not say the year before.
What's this argument? I was responding to a comment.
We're trying to figure out which one of us had the idea to have the World Cup of Hockey. I was saying Four Nations face off, have it every 2 years, or excuse me, every 4 years. We're trying to figure out who had the idea for the year preceding. I thought it was Harmon.
You brought that up first, and then I was like, you know what? I would prefer every 2 years, so you space it out. And then you agreed.
I thought you said you wanted it the year preceding.
You were the one that said that.
This is such a strange discussion.
Okay, I found it. Hang on.
Great for the audio pod listeners.
All right, it was Harmon. Moving on. Yeah. My bad.
Yep. I thought you were saying this as a joke because you brought it up like 2 or 3 times.
I wasn't making a joke. Dude, I even tweeted about it and said I brought this up on Canucks Convo. Did you not see that? I legitimately thought it was
I saw the tweet and I was like, yeah, whatever. He's just like tongue in cheek taking credit for it.
No, I was not joking. I really did think I really did think I came up with that. All right, my bad. Let's put our differences aside because it's time
Let's play Family Feud.
for the Family Feud. Let's do it, Jacob.
After that enthralling introduction, it's time to play Canucks Conversation. Family Feud. Looks like Quads is going first. I see Harmon's taking his headphones out. Harm, can you hear us? I don't think you can. All right. Okay, Quads. Again, you guys are trying to get back up to 500 now after the loss last week. A bit of a tough survey, but there was enough big answers that if you hit the last two number ones, you should be in a good spot.
Okay.
All right, Quads, you're going to have 25 seconds on the clock. Your time will begin when I finish reading the first question. If you can't think of a response, say pass. We'll come back to it at the end. Are you ready?
Yes.
Which pending UFA across the entire NHL should be Vancouver's number one target in free agency?
Nikolai Ehlers.
Rounded to the nearest million, what will Quinn Hughes' AAV be on his next contract?
14.
Name a Canuck to wear number 29 before Marcus Pettersson.
Gino Ojic.
Name a Canuck past or present from Switzerland.
Pius Suter.
Which current Canuck got the most Valentine's Day cards in school?
Brock Besser.
Right before the buzzer. Good work. You can flag Harm down, and I'll tally up your score.
Okay, I know I say this often, Harm. 200 points.
Okay, we'll see.
I
You were very confident
think I
last
did really
time, and
well.
it was like
I think I did
70
really well.
points.
You know what's
number ones.
absolutely insane, Quads, is I'm comfortable saying this. You got 4 of 5 number one answers. You got 192 points.
Oh my god, you weren't lying.
That's
So
so
someone
funny.
set, was it Conversation that set the over-under at 191.5?
He did.
Quads hit the over by himself.
Okay,
go.
congrats, man.
All right, thanks for tuning in to Canucks Combo. I'm done for the day.
All right, Harm, you're going to have 30 seconds on the clock. You just need to give an answer that's on my list, and your guys are going to win this
Okay.
one. If you give one of Quad's answers, though, which you probably will, you'll hear the buzzer, and I will ask you to try again. And if you can't think of an answer, say pass. We'll come back to it at the end. Are you ready, Harm?
Yeah, I'll try not to choke this.
Yeah, just like I said, if you get that buzzer and you can't think of anything, just pass. You can not answer 2 or 3 of these questions. You just need to get one at
You
some
got
point.
it. Just relax.
Yeah.
You're fine.
All right. Which pending UFA across the entire NHL should be Vancouver's number one target in free agency?
Rantanen,
Rounded to the nearest million, what will Quinn Hughes' AAV be on his next contract?
15 million.
Name a Canuck to wear number 29 before Marcus Pettersson.
Ojic.
Try again.
Aaron Rome.
Name a Canuck past or present from Switzerland.
Pius Suter.
Try again.
Skip.
Which current Canuck got the most Valentine's Day cards in school?
Brock Besser.
Try again.
Quinn Hughes.
Name a Canuck past or present from Switzerland.
It's fine.
You guys have already won. We'll go through the answers, but I know for a fact Harm hit the first number one answer, which was Rantanen. So you guys are back in the win column. We'll go through it, though, because people love when we go through it.
Yeah.
So Mikko Rantanen was the number one answer. It was 28 points. Ehlers was the number 2. So you guys got 1 and 2 there. Mitch Marner, Brock Besser, and Sam Bennett filled out the top 5. Nearest million, what will Hughes' AAV be? Again, you guys hit number 1 and number 2 answer, 14 million and 15 million. 14 people said 16 plus. So be a pretty rich contract, but it's Quinn Hughes. We know he's worth it. Number 29 before Marcus Pettersson. You guys got the number 1 and number 3 answers. So Gino was number 1, Aaron Rome number 3. The most recent one to do it was Casey DeSmith last year.
That was number
the number
2.
2
That's
answer.
crazy. Okay.
Recency, right? He just
Yeah.
wore it.
Yeah.
Some other fun ones in there. We had Tom Sestito, Peter Schaefer. So a few good pulls in there as well. Okay, Canuck past or present from Switzerland. There's only actually 4 guys who are Swiss nationals to play for the Canucks. One of them was born in Italy, so that's why I specifically said from Switzerland. He represented Switzerland internationally. That was Lucas Spiza. He was the number 3 answer. Pius Suter, number 1 answer, 51 points. The other two to do it were Sven Berchi and Yannick Weber. Finally, the Canuck who got the most Valentine's Day cards in school. Besser was number 1. Quinn Hughes was number 2 with 13. Other ones up there, Nils Höglander, Jake DeBrusk, Tyler Myers. Kind of the usual favorites when we ask this kind of question. I will get your actual final score. Doesn't really matter. As I said, you guys absolutely crushed it. Your final score was 276.
Let's go.
Unbelievable.
Well done, Quads.
So I think we should be able to take 76 points into next week.
I wish.
It does not
That's
work
not
like that.
how it works.
By the way, the next survey is available. So if you're watching on YouTube, listening to the podcast version, in the description, new survey is available.
Good stuff. Yeah, that was a good survey, Jacob. That was a really good survey. And I'm not just saying that because I did really well. I thought that was a good survey.
Like Quads, that was by far your best performance because you hit you got 4 number 1s and a number 2, which without hesitation either. Like you nailed that. No random pulls from guys that I have to search command F and search for, which is usually what I have to do for you.
I'm gonna try not to take too much of a victory lap here because I know next week it'll really come back to bite me. So solid game. Harmon, did you have anything else you wanted to get to? Because we're gonna get to the interview with Krissy Scurfield from Canada Rugby.
I mean, if there's anything in anyone else,
I guess this is the segment we're supposed to take questions from listeners. People were mostly participating early in the show when we were talking about the 4 nations. Oh, I had something to say. Forgot what it was. I had it written down too. Where did I write it down though? It was about the game.
Was it about Theodore?
Game. Yes, it was. Thank you. Yes. Shea Theodore exits with what looked like a right wrist injury. He's going to be out for not only the rest of the tournament, but Vegas announcing that he is week to week with an injury. Again, really, really tough break. And again, he was ruled out right away after the game. John Cooper. John Cooper was right away able to tell reporters that, he's out for the tournament.
Yeah, it is a blow, definitely. Theodore's a really talented puck mover, really good offensively, but Sanheim has also quietly been crushing it in Philly. I know a big reason why the Canadian management chose him was because he's killed it on Philadelphia's penalty kill, which has for the last couple of years been one of the best in the NHL. Sanheim's been a monster minute eater, like 25 minutes a night type of guy. He doesn't have as much puck moving flair as Theodore, which is unfortunate. But a big part of Theodore's value too is offensive, which on Team Canada he's not going to play the power play, right? So it is a loss for sure. It makes your back end less dynamic, even though Sanheim's a pretty good skater and is pretty mobile and he's not a liability moving the puck by any stretch of the imagination. But I am curious to see how much it'll impact their puck moving, because Sanheim's kind of similar to Parayko in that both guys can move well and both guys are like fine puck movers, but they're not high end. And so especially with Drew Doughty still working his way back from, of course, missing a ton of games and not playing too many this season, I wonder how heavily the Canadians will have to rely on Makar, Taves, and Morrissey to eat monster minutes.
And I mean, they relied on Makar heavily last night as well, almost 30 minutes of time. And again, I know this game went to overtime as well, but Makar is obviously a big fixture on that Canada blue line. Something interesting is people are talking about how Canada's not allowed to bring a player up to this tournament, or they are, but he's not allowed to practice with the team. Jacob, do you know what I'm talking about?
There was some confusion to it. I know Frank Saravalli, who is in Montreal, he joined us on the show the other day. He said after the game that Canada cannot bring a replacement in. The roster deadline was Monday, I believe, at 5 p.m. Eastern, and the only way they could add a player is if there was another injury. But I think that's where the confusion is, because I think it's if they drop below 18 skaters, but if they were to have another defenseman injured, they'd be down to 5 defensemen, and would they have to then go 13 and 5? So I think that's where the confusion is, but they will not be able to replace Theodore specifically with this injury, only if more injuries begin to pile up.
LeBrun had some interesting reporting, a couple tweets that that it seems like it's still they're working to get exact clarity on those parameters.
Yeah, they're kind of just making it up as they go. I don't think they
Yeah,
expected someone to get hurt in the first period of the tournament.
His tweet, which was just a couple hours ago, was, as it currently stands regarding Team Canada bringing in a 7th D, as per the NHL, that replacement player can hang around the Boston area, but can't practice or be with the team. He's not a member of the team and won't be unless another D goes down. I think Canada hopes that at least the player can be with the team in practice, but right now that's a no-go. So Pierre's tweet there seems to indicate that if another D does go down, Canada might be able to bring in another defenseman. So yeah, it seems like the NHL is just kind of making this up as they go along. But if they are afforded another defenseman, I would go to Mackenzie Weegar. I know he's a right shot, but he's primarily played the left side. He's been terrific in Calgary, and I think he'd be a great fit there.
My mind went to Weegar immediately, and then I also thought of Chris Tanev as well, but I like Weegar as well. Speaking of the blue line, and I know there's people that are immediately making the joke that Noah Juleson seen hanging around the Boston area, coincidentally. Speaking of the blue line, Sweden didn't even have Rasmus Andersson in their lineup. Like, Rasmus Andersson's their 7th defenseman. I think he's probably going to get into a game at some point. Do you agree?
Maybe. They're just so stacked.
Well, Hedman sucked last night.
He's also the
Victor
captain. They're not
Hedman.
going to pull him out.
And he's logging 25 minutes a night against like McDavid and McKinnon.
You send a message.
It's hard to be perfect in that type of environment. But who are you taking out? Like, Brodin's probably the best pure shutdown defenseman in the NHL.
No, you're not taking Brodin out. You're
not taking him out. I thought Carlson was... I thought he was dynamic offensively at times. I know he wasn't perfect.
Kind of leaning toward Carlson as my answer to you. I'm thinking take Carlson out.
But here's the thing is when I look at that Swedish blue line, they don't have a lot of elite offensive drivers. You know what I mean? Like Hedman, Brodin, Ekholm, Forsling, they all have some offensive chops. They all can move the puck, but we're not talking about like dynamic game breakers. The only dynamic game breakers aside from Carlson is Dahlin. So if you insert Andersson there, do you lose on some of the offensive upside, which I think matters when you have a forward group that, especially down the middle, isn't the most dynamic. I would have Carlson in the lineup ahead of Andersson.
What about Forsling?
I think Forsling's a better player than Rasmus Andersson all day long.
Okay. All right. Did you have anything else you wanted to get to? I mean, USA, Finland tonight. USA is the heavy favorite in that game. Finland has a very banged up blue line. Anything that you want to say about that game that we didn't already say in the preview show?
No. I'm fascinated to see how low event Finland can turn this game, because clearly that has to be your strategy, is to limit chances on both sides. You don't want to turn it into a track meet. You're going to be relying heavily on your goaltending. How do they manage their minutes on the blue line? It's going to take a real strategic and coaching masterclass to beat the U.S. And I'm kind of curious how quickly the U.S. is able to dictate the terms of the game as far as like flow and pace and opening things up.
Final thing today. Paul Papadoulis said this: I love Faber's new Insider podcast. The first episode dropped today. I got to listen to it like a month ago. Not to brag. But anyways, first episode with Conor Garland dropped today. Canucks Insider podcast. Check it out. It's such a cool concept. And I told Chris it was a good concept. Anyways, not to take victory laps on Chris's podcast. But anyways.
Are you stealing other people's ideas and again taking credit for it?
Well, look, I was a big fan of that idea. That's all I'm going to say. Big fan of that idea. And it's a perfect way for him to use the access that he gets that no one else gets. And, you know, rather than writing game previews, he's getting to do what he's really, really good at. So I'm really excited to see him getting to cook doing the podcast. So go listen to it, folks. We all miss Chris behind a mic. So glad to see him getting that shot that he should have gotten a long time ago. But anyways, he's back. He's back. Canucks Insider podcast. Want to get to Chrissy now?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's get to Chrissy Scurfield, who is brought to you fittingly by HSBC Rugby Sevens, where high caliber rugby and the Ultimate Party Weekend collide. SVNS is Western Canada's largest sporting event, and this year is the 10th anniversary of the event. From February 21st to 23rd, BC Place is the place to be. Grab your friends in your best costume and come on down for the best party in town. Single day tickets are now on sale. Friday tickets start at just $50. And with that, let's get to Chrissy Scurfield with the Canadian women's team. All right, very pleased to be joined now by the pride of Canmore, Alberta. Chrissy Scurfield joins us now. Chrissy, thanks so much for doing this. How you doing?
Yeah, no, I'm doing good. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, excited to have you here. So let's just talk about your journey here. Obviously, you're on Team Canada, but we heard you were a pretty good hockey player growing up. So how'd you make that switch, that sports switch from hockey to rugby?
Yeah, I mean, playing hockey, that was definitely like my number one sport growing up. Like literally, I think I probably started learning how to skate when I was like 2 or 3. My older siblings did it. So obviously I just jumped on that bandwagon and wanted to do it as well. Played pretty competitively, played with the boys up until I was probably 13 and then switched to girls. And then did that till I was 18. And then within those couple of years of being a teenager, I kind of picked up playing rugby. I got a lot of penalties when I played hockey, like lots of, obviously in girls, it's not as much contact as the guys. So I would always get body checking, like all these crazy penalties. I always led the team or the league usually in penalty minutes. So when I started playing rugby, it was like, okay, this is great. Like my physicality is actually like making me better rather than like kind of like a little bit, of a liability for the team. So I really like that part of rugby. And yeah, I think going into university, I got offered a spot on the Development Canada team, and that was in Victoria. So my kind of dream was to play hockey and rugby at uni, but in Victoria, they don't have a hockey program, sadly. So I kind of had to make that decision to kind of just go for rugby. And yeah, that kind of ended my hockey career a little bit earlier than I wanted to, but yeah.
You had the opportunity, obviously, to go to the Paris Olympics, picked up a silver medal. What was it like representing Canada on the biggest stage possible, and just that overall experience of being at the Olympics, winning a silver medal?
Yeah, I mean, it was just a dream come true. Being at the Olympics is something that I've wanted to do my entire life. It being rugby is something that if you would have told me when I was 10 years old, I would have said no way. But yeah, no, it was just incredible. Like representing your country is just, I mean, it's an unmatched feeling. Lots of pride being beside all my teammates. They're all incredible athletes. So, I mean, yeah, the achievement we did was, yeah, like I think there couldn't have been a better outcome. Really proud of all the girls for their work, and yeah, just super pumped with being able to come away with the silver medal.
Okay, so this event, we talk about rugby sevens all the time. We talk about the partying. We talk about how much of a fun atmosphere it is. But like as a player, what are you most looking forward to?
I think just getting back into the groove. I haven't played seven since the Olympics, so I'm really excited to get back into it. Obviously, our team has a super strong bond after kind of the past couple of years we spent together. There's a lot of great talent coming up as well that are going to hit the field this weekend. So I think just kind of being back with the girls and working hard for each other is the number one thing I'm looking forward to. And then, yeah, just scoring tries, winning games.
Love it. Love it.
You mentioned earlier, obviously, that you switched to rugby a little bit later. I'm curious, is that relatively uncommon? Were you, compared to a lot of your teammates, a late starter? And if that's the case, what skills from playing hockey do you think translated well outside of just the physicality that you referenced earlier?
Yeah, it's actually a really good question. For the age thing, I think, honestly, a lot of the girls probably started like around this age. There's a couple people that have started since they were like little girls. But yeah, I think honestly an average age for rugby is like 10 to 15-ish, kind of picking it up. A lot of crossover athletes on our team as well. But yeah, I would say I'm a little bit later, like 15 is a little bit old. I would say a lot of people start when they're like 12. But yeah, the crossover things, like honestly, so many aspects of the game is very relatable. I mean, like hockey, everything's so team focused, and you got to find space. You got to like figure out how to play with your teammates. Training's very similar. Lots of hand-eye in both sports. So, and then also like the fitness aspect of it as well. Lots of similarities. So yeah, I think a lot of things crossed over, but definitely contact physicality would be probably the biggest one.
Do you ever think about like what could have been with hockey? Like you see the PWHL taking off now. Do you ever think about like, oh, what if I stuck with hockey?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, like considering it was probably like my biggest dream as a kid was to play hockey. I do think about what it would have been. I mean, there's so many great opportunities for women in sport right now with hockey. And I think the PWHL is such a amazing thing that has started recently, and it's just growing and growing, and being able to watch those players like play professionally and have like a home base and do all these things while also representing their country. And I think it's an amazing thing. And yeah, I mean, it would be incredible if that would have been the path that my life went to, but I mean, I'm loving my life right now as well. So I think either way, things could have been great. But yeah, I think there's a lot of exciting things happening with women's sport right now.
Clearly you did pretty good for yourself. We're looking forward to watching you, Krissy. Thanks so much for taking the time today and doing this with us today.
Yeah, no, thanks so much, guys.
Awesome. There she is, Krissy Scurfield, who you can watch at BC Place for Canada Sevens, which we're looking forward to. Our thanks again to Krissy for joining the show. Harm, let's close it out with our Bet365 Bet of the Day, which is brought to you by, you guessed it, Bet365. Okay, we talked about the Four Nations face-off. USA, Finland tonight. Finland are heavy underdogs. I don't really like their chances. Again, I looked at that Finland blue line and I looked at that USA forward group and I don't like it. But one bet I do like is the over in goals. Right now, you can get over 6 total goals in the game at plus 100. Again, under 6 is minus 120, so we're going to take plus 100 for over 6 goals in the game. That was our bet of the day, brought to you by Bet365, a proud partner of Canucks Conversation. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Be sure to use code NATION when you sign up for an account. Must be 19 plus to play. If you choose to play, please play responsibly. All right, we'll wrap it up there. For my co-host Harmon Dial and our technical producer Jacob Lazar. Our thanks again to Krissy Scurfield for joining us on today's show. My name is Dave Guardelli. Thanks so much for listening to the episode of Canucks Conversation. Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.